All right. Well, I'm going to kick it off just because we have a lovely punctual group and we've seen some people trickle in early, which is wonderful. So, good morning and welcome. We are absolutely thrilled to have you join our educational webinar on Mastering Agentforce. We were using Webinar Geek, so if you guys have any questions throughout this presentation, please pop them into the Q&A section, and Rhoda will get to that at the end of the session. If there's anything that you happen to stump us on, we'll send a quick email and follow up with you after. But I thought I would start with a quick introduction on who Plative is, for those who do not know. We are a leading digital innovation firm, and we specialize in Salesforce and Oracle NetSuite. We love to empower companies and organizations to unlock your AI capabilities, streamline data, and sort of drive better decision-making across platforms. And my favorite part is to introduce our amazing lead for this session, which is Rhoda. She's our principal consultant and team lead on the Salesforce side, and very much an internal champion for us around Agentforce. So she's helped our delivery team support and deliver amazing seamless deployment for AI that basically turns possibility into tangible outcomes. So I'm very excited for you all to learn from her today. So Rhoda, without further ado, you can take the floor.
Perfect. So good. It's 12 for me, so it's afternoon, but good morning to everyone. And quick introduction about myself. My name is Rhoda. Since the webinar started till now, I did get promoted. So now I'm a delivery solution architect here at Plative. I have been in the ecosystem for about 7 years, and I've implemented a lot of projects within that time. I'm very passionate about getting things done and done the right way with Salesforce. I'm 14 times Salesforce certified. I'm a stickler for like writing exams and just like skilling up. So this is one of the things that I enjoy doing. My focus clouds are Agentforce, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Experience Cloud, Marketing Cloud, and Digital Engagement. So before Agentforce came, I was building Einstein bots, and I'm here today to walk us through what I call the checklist for a successful Agentforce implementation. So thank you so much for your time. I hope to use this 1 hour very effectively so that we both have walk away from this session with like a lot of interesting things from our call. So Jess already talked about Plative, so I won't do that again, but I'm just going to run through the agenda of today's session. We are done the basic introductions, and I've kind of categorized the whole webinar into 3 sections. The very first one is laying the foundation. So what are the considerations you should have before implementing Agentforce? The other one is, I call it building with confidence. What are the considerations you should do during an implementation? And then the last one is sustaining and scaling success. This is what you should do during the rollout period and when you finally go live with Agentforce. We'll open the floor to questions and answers, and Jess will send out the checklist that we've created for you after this call. I think it's something that will be important to take back to your teams to have conversations with them. So with that said, we'll go into the details. So the very first one that I wanted to do was a quick poll, and feel free to select what your answers are. I'm trying to figure out with everyone in the call today, where are you in your Agentforce journey? So I see some answers coming in. I'll give it a couple of minutes as well. Just looking for where people are. Okay, more answers are coming in. Wonderful. Wonderful. So we have 7 responses. Some people are in the middle. Some people are just starting. Perfect. Any more answers? Any more takers for this piece? Okay. Perfect. So you see that 71% of the audience today is just about starting the Agentforce journey, and about 29% are currently in the middle of an implementation. So that's great to know where everybody is at. So we'll move on with that. So if this is the first time you're hearing about Agentforce, Agentforce was released sometime last year, and it is Salesforce's tool to kind of help empower a lot of the next gen solutions built on AI. It's a low code interface, which means that you can pretty much get away without having to write like Apex or any form of code to build most of these agents. We have been releasing different types of agents. We have the service agent, the SDR agent, the sales code agent. We're currently working with Salesforce to actually build out some of the e-commerce agents, which is like agents that can live on your online stores and help people actually shop for stuff. So there are different, and these are not the only ones that are available. There are different types of agents that are being released. And the goal at the end of the day is to have an agent for every sector to be able to, support you, be it hospitality, whatever it is, there's going to be an agent there to be able to support the whole process. So before we move very quickly into this, I just want also to do a playtive plug. If for any reason you haven't seen like live demos of what Agentforce can do, we have a lot of Agentforce accelerators, some also built by me, and Jess will also send this link as well so that you can watch it on our website. If you go to our website and you go to Agentforce in the link, you're able to see a lot of our sample agents that we've built, and you can watch the demos. Many of them are on YouTube, and you can see a demo of what's possible. We have accelerator programs where we can get you live on Agentforce in 30 days. So it's that quick, but it's also very impactful. So if you're looking to learn more about Agentforce, this is the place to stick to. So very quickly, I'm not going to spend time doing a demo today, but I'm just going to show you high level on this screen here, typically what the agents are. So you have like the agents like they typically called chatbots before, but now they're powered by AI that live on your website. We are now rolling out a couple of agents that actually they're called headless agents, which means that you don't have to have an interface to be able to chat with them. They can live in your email. So somebody can send an email to you and the agent can actually respond back to the email. So we have a couple of customers that we're implementing this for. But if you're not going the headless route, there are the ones where you have the interface, the web agents, and you're able to ask them questions and they'll be able to respond and things like that. So I just wanted to show you, when we talk about agents, this is what we're talking about. Kind of like smart AI bots that are able to get you things done as quickly as possible. So just showing you a quick screen of what that is. So we're going to lay the foundation very quickly. One of the things that we've seen in the course of implementing for a lot of customers is not actually figuring out what you want to do with Agentforce and just doing anything or what seems to be the trend, which isn't the way to go. The very first thing that one has to do when you are starting your Agentforce implementation is to kind of define what your AI vision and objective is. And how do you do this? If you have a pretty large organization or even a small organization, the first places that we ask people to kind of start from is identifying tasks/use cases where AI can add value. That list might be really long. A couple of them that might be high priority, help your teams run smoother, reduce the amount of time that people have to wait to get results. You can also find like pain points with your system or opportunities for automation. And that is points that you can start with to kind of define what your AI vision is. The ultimate goal is for you to be able to choose a use case that aligns with your company vision, or something that's a quick win for the team as well. We're seeing customers who try to build on Agentforce and do too much too soon. So we always ask that you pick a couple of features and choose a minimum viable product so that you can demonstrate value very quickly and reduce risk when it comes to building your Agentforce. Also, depending on the maturity of your team to AI, you are also, you might end up doing more. But if you are very new to building with language models, if you're very new to Agentforce, it might be best to start with an MVP, which is 3 to 4 features, and then start to scale from there. People who tend to do too much at the beginning always have the issues where the bot is confused on what to do, and they're not able to support those teams as well. So the very first thing we want to do in the checklist is to define what your AI vision and objectives are. Okay. Next one I wanted to ask for the team, and this is an engagement, something to think about. What is one thing that you wish Agentforce could do to take off something off your organization's plate today? It might just be one thing. So if you can let me know in the chat, that would be great. We just want to know what is one thing, if you think about it. And if you don't have an answer right now, it's fine. You can think about it through the course of this conversation. But the goal is, we want you to think about one thing you wish Agentforce could do for your organization, or one process it could automate or replace, or give us an idea. So put that in the chat while I continue the conversation that we have. Okay. The next thing that we want to do with regards to Agentforce is to define security and access rights. Now, depending on the industry that you belong to, there are rules that guide those industries. There are rules how are you supposed to handle people's data? There are rules to what you cannot show to people without authorization. There's different rules depending on your industry. So one of the things that we ask our customers to do is to create a risk profile. We need you to identify, if something went wrong with the agent today, what is the worst thing that could happen that will create so much damage to your company that it will be hard to come back from. Document those risks. Very quickly, when people hear the word risk, they always think of it as a bad thing. And risk isn't always bad. Risk is always an opportunity for you to think about potential problems and then try to work a way to prevent them. So get your team to put everything on the table. If the bot hallucinated today and it gave people the wrong information, would that cause loss of life? Like, there are things you need to be able to do at the beginning, depending on your industry, right? To be able to determine what your risk profile looks like. After you do that, you will now have the opportunity to start to design with the least privileged access. So we start with the features that are going to do lesser harm than a larger harm, especially if you do not know how to build the system. So we start doing that. The goal at the end of the day when we're building with Agentforce is to build with the most minimum amount of functionality or access. The bot should not have access to all your data. The bot should only have access to a subset of data. The bot should never be going into your system to update people's master records. Typically, people have like a staging table where the bot puts like some of the information, and then somebody can kind of overview it before you like move it to like update a customer or a patient's record. So depending on your industry, we start to design with the least privileged access. The next thing that I talked about very quickly is requiring human sign-off. When you're starting a process with Agentforce, everyone wants to trust AI, but there always is a part of human review that will happen at the initial stages of the implementation. And so we always ask that you establish workflow approvals. The bot can't do this without a human looking at it. So there are some situations where you want to know, it's like, example, account changes, account updates, and different things. If you're already a Salesforce customer today, you understand the issue of like access, permission sets, and things like that. We always ask that you create separate permission sets for your bot. That way, if something is wrong, you know where to go, like make changes to very quickly. And then the last one, while you're preparing for your Agentforce implementation, is to plan for regular access audits. You cannot let your bot just do what it wants. Every quarter, the goal is to see what transactions did it run, what type of access did it have, does it still need this access? Can we close it up to a particular group? Can we reduce the access? Like, whatever way you can do to regularly audit your access, you should be able to do that as well with Agentforce. So these are all the steps that you need as you are kind of thinking through like starting an implementation. The next one is evaluating your data readiness. The quality of your data many times impacts the quality of your agent. If your data is bad, your agent will be bad, because the agent works primarily on the data that it is trained on, or primarily on the data that is available to it. So one of the things we ask our customers to do is to create a data inventory. Many organizations have data living in multiple systems. The goal is to find where all your data sources are and bring them into one place, or find where they are and determine what data will be used to power the bot. It's very important to get that piece done. The next thing you want to do is align on your data model. Do you have, what is your account structure? Are you doing B2B, B2Cs? Are your customer base typically just like end users, or are they companies? It's important to note those processes, or are they both? To note those processes as you start working with customers, because you will need to understand if a customer says today, this is my email. Is that the email of the account? Is that the email of the contact? Is that the email of the personal account? Building out what your data model is, how people are related to example cases, related to requests. Building out that data model is very important at the start of analyzing your data. The next thing you want to do is to clean your data. If for any reason there are duplicate people in your system for the same person, Agentforce, you can train it to either not be able to respond to any of them because of inconsistencies, which is definitely going to make a customer unhappy, or you can change it, train it to pick the first record, but it's still an issue. So we ask that companies do a lot of data cleanup, fix any inconsistencies with your data. And you don't have to fix everything. It's pretty much the subset that is important for the agent to see. So you can do it in a staged approach for cleaning up the data. Get rid of missing fields. If for any reason, the email is how you are identifying a customer, it means that there shouldn't be records in the system with missing email information. So you need to get your data to a good state for it to be able to work effectively. The next thing is to migrate and integrate your data. With Data Cloud, which is Salesforce's platform for unifying data from different systems, you're able to bring data from your ERP systems, from your data lakes into Salesforce, into one unified place. And the agent just looks at Data Cloud instead of looking at multiple systems. So you're able to do that as well. And the last part is to establish data governance, limit the access, and set clear rules for how the bot is going to use data. Many times when we come to bot information, we typically make an entry into a staging table, then making updates to the records themselves at the beginning. As you become comfortable with data and how all of those pieces are used, it's very important that you define what that data governance is and then begin to scale up on the process. Your agent should never have more information than it needs. So design for that with that piece in mind. Next thing is to define success metrics. Very quickly, we build agents for customers, and we have conversations of how do you actually determine that the agent is successful? How do you determine that the agent is effective? It's really hard to find out if you don't already have metrics of how your system is doing right now. So questions like what is our processing time? How quickly are we responding to messages? Like, if you don't already have the metrics, you are not going to be able to have a benchmark to kind of check how the progress is with Agentforce too. So we ask customers to currently try to track some metrics just so that you can actually see the effectiveness of Agentforce. How much time is it taking you now? Then how much time is it taking you then? As well, to define metrics of what you want to do. So every time you pick an agent or you pick a feature, one of the things that you say is, okay, for example, I want an agent to be able to answer customer questions. what is the business goal behind that? We're looking for 24/7 support. We're looking for higher satisfaction. Like, we're looking for a couple of things, right? So defining those business goals as well help you to track, hey, this is the metric we want to check. We want to track what is the rate of escalation, what is the rate of deflection. We want to track all those important pieces. So defining these business goals help you to do that. The next thing as well is to create user journeys. So if somebody asks a question today, how do we know that that question was actually helpful to them? So you can have like mini like questions to say, did you find this helpful? And then based off of that, you can build some more like the metrics to say, of all the answers that Agentforce returned, the customer only found 40 helpful, or they only found 30 helpful. So creating what those user experiences are is also going to be important. The next one you want to do is gather stakeholder input and define success metrics. So have conversations with your teams. What exactly is important to them? What is a measurable outcome that they want to see, and have all of those. We already talked about gathering baseline data. Right now, collect as much as you can get so that you have something to compare with the whole process. So define your metrics before you start your implementation. It will help you to be able to actually validate that the numbers are correct, and then know how well Agentforce is doing for your organization. Okay. The next part in the process before you start is partner selection and defining an MVP launch for Agentforce. I'm going to plug Creative very quickly because we have over 200 certified certifications for individuals who are implementing Agentforce, and we're able to help with many of the implementations. But if you aren't currently using Creative right now, and you're thinking of doing an implementation, you should use us. But selecting the right implementation partner also impacts the success of your implementation. If your implementation partner is not as committed to your success as you are, you kind of will run into a lot of issues. Get partners to show you what they've done previously, watch live demos, and use those as well as baselines for some of your existing features. The right partner makes a difference, and it prevents you from avoiding costly missteps. And the last one on this one is to define what your MVP is. Very, very important. Try to go live with a couple of features than with a whole system of features. Select a low-risk project with high impact. You want to be able to sell to the people who are sponsoring this project that, hey, this is what Agentforce has done so far. We can do now a phase 2 with 4 more functionalities, and then it builds confidence as you go through the process of the piece. So that was everything about laying the foundation for Agentforce implementation. Very important that we do that, and then we go through the rest of the pieces. So we go to the second part of the webinar, which is building with confidence. This is what to do when you are starting an implementation or about to you're starting the build of an implementation. The very first thing you need to do is align on timeline. One thing that we know is with projects is that timelines always move. But when you're working with an implementation partner as well, get inputs from them as well as to what is sustainable, because you might want to go live in 10 days and they tell you 30 days is what you should do, best practice. Listen to opinions of your implementation partners as well, to be able to establish a timeline that works for both parties, that allows you to test as much as possible when you're doing all of these processes. Define what your project goals are, set the scope of your boundaries for the project. So what is not included in this project. Try to avoid scope creep. In as much as you start the build, you see something, you want to add another feature. Try your best to not jump into adding additional things without knowing what the full implication of what a little change might be. So if you agreed on four items, try to keep it to that 4 during the build so that you don't jump into doing 7 and then those 7 are not well thought through before the implementation. So it's something very important that I would also like to say. The next one is to allocate resources. A large number of projects especially if you are the customer that is we're going to be implementing for. Many teams do not get the right people enough bandwidth to support projects. So you have situations where you are building an implementation. Your team is still doing their day-to-day job, unfortunately. So they don't really have as much time to be able to sit in meetings or meet deliverables. So one of the things that we ask is that you allocate resources and time and personnel for this particular implementation. It is best to get people in there testing, in there giving their feedback, giving their opinion, people showing up to demos. It's important to have that because it prevents a situation where someone that was important was not aware of, hey, here's what the final demo is, and then we run into issues. Establish deadlines and responsibility. At every point in time, there should never be a task that you don't know who's handling it. Assign clear ownership for each task, and that way everybody is able to meet what the due dates are for those tasks. As always, identify and mitigate risks. Any risk that is identified, the goal as possible is to be able to close that risk and reduce that whatever impact that risk will have had to the project. The next one, and this is one of the most important pieces, is verifying environment readiness. So many times when we're building Agentforce, we aren't really building Agentforce in your production environment. We are building in a sandbox. And so we've had so many occasions where customers have a sandbox, but the sandbox doesn't have data cloud, which is where a lot of their data is going to live for knowledge articles, or maybe we're in the wrong sandbox. Before you start any of these implementations, have conversations with your AEs to say, hey, my team is going to start implementation on XYZ day. Can we please confirm and make sure that we have the right licenses? If you're going to be working with prompt templates, get the right licenses. If you're going to be working with data cloud, get the right licenses. It tends to cause a bit of a delay if you are not prepared before that conversation happens. So I always call this out, verify that your sandboxes have the right licenses to work with this. The next one is to plan for setup delays and be patient. One thing that Agentforce has taught me is patience, because if you are very familiar with building automations, you do 1 + 1 = 2, and straightforward, that's it. But when dealing with a bot, you are in turn training it to do something. And so the first couple of times when you're testing it, or the first couple of times when you're sitting in a demo, you would see a couple of things that don't look quite right. Have patience with your implementation partners as well, because the bot will take a little bit of time to learn and just react well. So in the initial conversations, I always encourage people to ask questions, flag what you saw was weird, but exercise patience as we go through most of these implementations. It'll make you happy at the end of the day, and it'll make other people happy as well. Select the type of agent you want to configure. So if you are looking to configure like a shopper agent, you're doing e-commerce. If you're looking to configure like a support agent, you're doing the service agent. So know what type of agent it is that you want to build, and then the implementation partners have to make sure that all the permissions are different from what people typically have. The next one is to define topics and actions early. So I'm going to show in the screen very quickly what topic and actions are. So this is the back end of Agentforce. So this is where a lot of your implementation partners live. And so when you go to topics, think of them as clusters of work that your Agentforce can do. So for example, you have a topic called case management. And so what it does is it handles everything related to case management. You have a topic for escalation. So it handles everything for escalation. The goal at the end of the day is to be able to have your topics clearly defined based off of your features. A topic can have a number of actions. So for example, this case management one has the action to be able to close a case. It has the action to be able to add a comment to a case. It has the option to be able to get a case by case number by email. It has different actions. Your implementation partners will help you, but at the initial defining what the topics are, we want one topic to be able to do order management. We want one topic to be able to do work order management. What this does is it helps you build like clear pictures of what you want to do with Agentforce. And it also helps Agentforce avoid any form of misclassification. So for every time you ask the agent something, what it does is that it identifies the intent. What is the customer trying to do? And it goes to pick a topic. So in the screen that you have here, what I did here was I asked the agent, can you provide me with support materials to fix my 3200 series device? What it did was it took that question into a user prompt. It went to find the right topic that should be used. And when it did that, the topic it selected was general FAQ because it understood that the customer was asking a general question. It went through all the instructions and actions, and what it did was it passed through the answer. It passed the question through the data cloud. It returned the answer, and it put the answer out here to the customer. So if you don't have clearly defined topics, there's going to be misclassification. If a topic is focusing on work orders, when a customer is asking about work orders, it always knows to go to that topic. If you're focusing on case management, the customer is asking for case management, it always knows to go to that topic. So your implementation partners will help you, but as a customer as well, it's important that you know what the thing is about so that you're able to walk into those meetings with confidence to say, hey, I know this stuff. This is how we want to arrange our pieces. And then you also be able to manage that. The other part of it as well is that Agentforce now supports multiple languages. So if you have a knowledge article today, and I use this as an example, I asked the same question in French and Agentforce responded in French. So you don't have to have multiple knowledge articles in different languages to be able to support your customers anymore. The agent is able to understand intent and then respond accordingly with the language that the question was asking if your agent supports the question. So it's one of the most interesting things I've seen with Agentforce, and now people are able to support a wide variety of customers through this whole piece. You can choose what the default language is. You can only choose one default language, but you can also select other languages to be able to work with your Agentforce. So I just wanted to show you a sneak peek of what happens behind the scene and how that also helps you to kind of define most of these pieces. As always, implementation partners need to make sure that they document instructions very clearly and adopt best practices while building in the sandbox. Now, building during the process, this isn't focused mainly on customers, it's mostly for implementation partners. We ask that people break a build into short sprints. It can be as short as a week. When building Agentforce, getting feedback very quickly is very important to the success of the project. We ask that people not wait till the end of the implementation for you to see the bot for the very first time. So every week there's a new feature or there's an update to an existing feature. Regular demos with stakeholders help with its successful implementation. After each sprint, we demo something to you, you look at what it looks like, you give us feedback, and we take those feedbacks to refine the instructions and the workflows. It's very important that we do that throughout the process. Define the user journeys and experiences. I'm not going to focus on this too much, but one of the important things, and I think we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, is for us to be able to map what the journeys are. So if a customer comes to ask a question, how do we want to handle it? We want it to provide the answer, okay? What happens after it provides the answer? We want to ask it, like, was this information helpful? Or if you couldn't answer the question, the customer, what do we want to do? We want to give it an option to, if a live agent is available, route the person to a live agent. If a live agent isn't available, we want to create a case. Define what that user experience is. Implementation partners will also be able to help you with best practices that we've seen as we do implementations, but it's also important that you have that piece as you define all of these experiences with the agent. We use UPN diagrams here to build workflows. I think a lot of people can adopt that so that you have clearer workflows as you go through the process. Okay, so that said, we're going to move into branding. And this is my favorite because before I started doing Agentforce, I used to build websites. And so branding is a big part of why I like building Agentforce. We have a brand guide that we share with teams. It helps you define what the look and feel of your agent is. For the one that I showed you here, if you can see, this is the website. We're able to choose like what the color of the headers are. You're able to put your logo into the chat. You're able to give the bot and its own logo as well. You're able to choose like what the colors of the chat boxes and the bubbles are. A visually appealing bot is always going to be interacted with. If it looks decently pretty, people will use it. So very important to be able to do this. If you don't have a design team, just come up with people that are able to do this. But if you have a design team, pretty much just should give them the design guideline and just tell them, hey, we're looking for these colors and this branding, provided to us. With most of the Agentforce implementations, you typically have this small circle that comes out of box. For me, our team has been able to kind of change what the experience is. So you can change the buttons. You can have a pop-up that's just like stays at the top of the screen to say, hey, you have a question, our AI bot can help. So you can help drive people to that bot with a lot of branding and style. These are a little bit custom, but there are things that we can do. You can change the color of the pop-ups. You can change the button, different things. You can do whatever it is that you want to do with the branding. So it's very good that teams do that at the beginning. Define what the bot name is, establish a tone and a voice for your bot. Do you want it to? There are three choices that you have. You have casual, you have neutral, and I think you have one that's a little bit professional. Many people stick to neutral. Don't want to sound too casual, don't want to sound too professional. So many people stick to neutral, but establish what you want your tone to be, what the visual identity of your bot is, and what your brand statements are. What is the first welcoming message that the bot has to the agent? You also want to be able to do that piece as well. Okay, so that said, I have another engagement. If you were to build an Agentforce today, what would you name it? And so you can let me know in the chat what you would name your agent if you were to build one today. I have built a couple with very interesting names: Rex, Benny, you name it, Alice. Like, people have whatever it is, but one of the things that we've seen when it comes to Agentforce is if your agent has a personality, people are more interested to interact with your agent. So just something that I wanted to tell people as you go through your implementations as well. The next part when you're building is to test. I can never emphasize this enough. Test, 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 test. Don't always test the happy parts. Test the different outliers, use cases. With Agentforce, there are two ways to test. There is the manual way, and then there's the automated way, which Salesforce calls the testing center. So you can have a spreadsheet with like multiple use cases, and you can load them at once you can load them at once to the particular piece and then make it as straightforward as possible. So you can do it manually as well, like through this agent builder or through the chat window screen, but you can also do automated tests with testing center and try to get pieces done. One of the things that we've seen with our Agentforce implementations is multiple rounds of user acceptance testing. And that's because people test for the first time and they have feedback, or like feedback that goes into the build, and we add those feedbacks and then people test again. So give time for testing. Testing period for Agentforce might not be as straightforward as testing for your other functionalities. Most of it is not changing the feature, but just changing the user experience. This is what people end up doing a lot. Select the right tools to test and document like what you are testing. what are the results, what failed, what didn't work out, and then use this feedback to continuously improve the experience. Okay. And so that's everything that I had for the build phase of the implementation. So that said, we go into the last phase of this webinar, which is sustaining and scaling success. So this is what happens after go live, and this is like during the rollout period. One of the things that we ask customers to do is align on the rollout strategy. You can define what type of rollout you want to have. There's the big bang, so all features go live at once. We see this happen, especially if you have a smaller project. There is the phased approach. So let's say you have 6 websites where this bot is going to be hosted. You can try a phased approach where for phase 1, we're only launching it on the support website, or we're only launching it on the portal. We're not launching it everywhere. We want to see how it does well on the portal first, and then give it a week or 2, and then we launch on other sites. That is also an approach that you can take. And then there's another one, which is you do a pilot as well, which is, I want to launch to just this subset of people at first, and then other people can go. Or you can have 6 features in the phased approach and you launch only 4, or you launch only 3, and then see how those 3 do, and then launch an additional 2. Choose what is best for your business. There's no one size fits all with this. You know your customers, you know your end users for this agent. Whatever is going to make them successful is the approach that you should go with. Whenever we're doing rollouts as well, engage the right stakeholders, like whoever is the sponsors, project teams, IT support, engage them. They all need to be part of this rollout strategy. They all need to be looking out for what your customers are saying about your agent once it is live. And then there has to be some form of support to, support decks to be able to track outliers. If people are having issues with the bot, we need to be able to put on the bot clear communication channels. If something is broken, reach out to support@creative.com, and you have that on the bot, and let people actually man those inboxes so that people are not frustrated with the experience. It's very easy to take customers off. So one of the things that we do is make sure that we have dedicated support members to be able to help different teams. The next thing is training and awareness. As we're defining what the rollout is, even before we push things out, we do the train the trainer approach, where if you have a group of support reps that are supporting your customers, they also have to be able to master the system so that when customers reach out to them or when their accounts reach out to them, they're able to say, hey, here's our portal. This is how to use it. This is what you can do with it, and things like that. We also have peer mentoring. So you can have the train the trainer approach, where you have a subset of people be the point of contacts for your Agentforce implementation, and then people in your team are able to meet them and upskill and support other of their peers through the adoption process. Also have flexible learning, offer webinars, offer self-list models, create engaging media, let people know that something is here. Let them know that you now have a new bot, create ads, anything to sell that the bot is here to drive engagement is very important. Real-time support is needed, clear communication is needed, and any form of interactive elements, be it hands-on quizzes, hands-on exercises, all are important while you are driving adoption and awareness that your Agentforce is live, or your Agentforce is going live in a couple of days or months. The next one is to monitor, gather feedback, and analyze. So now that your Agentforce is live, one of the things that we do for our customers, so if, for example, you have like an agent that is answering people's questions, one of the things that you want to know in the first few weeks is it really answering people's questions? What questions could it not answer? And so based off of those questions, you are able to say, okay, people are asking about this and our knowledge base doesn't have this, so we need to add some more knowledge articles. So we've seen people's knowledge bases go from 50, 60 knowledge articles up to 500 in 2 weeks, because people are asking for things that they didn't even know that people were asking for. So knowing what it is, and when you monitor your agent, you're able to update those pieces very quickly. Conduct training as frequently as possible. If you roll out new features, continue to train people. Establish clear feedback channels. Have a rapid response team. I cannot emphasize this enough. Have people that are ready at any point in time to be able to help customers through issues, because a new tool can be very difficult to adopt. So if people believe that there's somebody that can help them if they go into any issues, they're more relaxed about approaching it. And then, make sure that there are people that are also able to support you. A lot of our customers also purchase like a post-go live support bucket, which is a couple of hours that they keep us on just after go live, so that if anything comes up, we're able to help with like fixes or enhancements and anything like that with the particular piece. We talked about defining what the success metrics were at the beginning of the implementation. At this point in time, what we want to do is review the agent metrics. We want to be able to look at our dashboards. What was the deflection rate between last week and this week? What was the deflection rate between a year before now and now? Now it is when you are sitting in those dashboards and reviewing what your benchmark was and reviewing what the trend is. We are getting large amount of customers between 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock. You're able to see that information on dashboards. We're getting a lot of people use the bot on certain days. You're able to see as much information as you need through these metrics and reporting. You should never leave an Agentforce implementation without good enough reporting. So as good as it can get, please get reports to be able to support your Agentforce implementation. And the very last thing on my list is celebrate success and share learnings. You went through the process together. Be able to have retrospectives. What could we have done? What could we do better during the implementation? Share what your success stories are. Share what your best practices are, because the 4 features that you release today are not the 4 features your bot will have forever. You will still do future implementations. Those success stories help you prepare better for future implementations. Document your lessons learned. How could we have done better? Host regular debrief sessions and retrospective. Have an open culture of like feedback. Somebody can see the experience with the bot now and say, for a future phase, I think we should do it this way. Encourage your teams to be able to provide feedback on what the customers are doing and what the customers are saying about your bot. And at the end of the day, celebrate any successes. You've done a lot to trust the system to be able to do this implementation. You should be able to celebrate the success and share your learnings as you go through the process. So that's the last part that I have. This is the checklist documentation. Jess is going to send this out to you, and it just has everything that I talked about today, laying the foundation, all the things that you need to do. So you can engage your teams with this, check the boxes off once you guys have completed each phase. This is building with confidence. We have a couple of them. And then the last one is scaling for success. And so you are able to, I just tried to summarize everything that I talked about today into a couple of lines to share with your team. If you are in an implementation right now, you can still read baseline and ensure that you have the right things that you need. If you are just about to start, you probably have the advantage because now you have some guardrails to be able to help you as you go through the process. So with that, it brings me to the end of the piece. I did have an interaction, which is a quiz. I can start it while everyone is doing whatever, while I'm going through the conclusion. It pretty much is which of this is not a best practice post-launch. And then pick one that you think is not a best practice and let me know. Perfect. The key points for success: choose wisely, choose the right use case, choose the right implementation partner. I put there wink, wink, plative. Choose the right team champions, choose the right time. It might never be the right time right now, but it might be the right time in a month from now. Choose the right pilot group, choose the right goals, prepare your data, make sure you know where your data is, access your data, clean your data, and integrate your data into Salesforce. As you build and as you launch, ensure transparency. Let there be ways that people can provide feedback to you, provide escalation channels for people. And most importantly, please protect people's privacy. Whatever information should not be out there, your bot shouldn't have access to it. Whatever ways you have to verify people's identity to be able to provide them information. If they have to give you like a code from their email to be able to move forward with anything on the bot, put those guardrails there. Gather feedback and always expand on your agent capability. The agent is not one and done, it's one and improved. So keep doing that process as you go, and then ultimately keep iterating and optimize your agent continuously. The Agentforce implementation might feel like it's like a whole lot, but it gets easier. And as you mature with AI, you get more confident, and you are able to build more features, take on more topics, take on more actions, and ultimately help your organization scale for success. So that's everything that I had today. Thank you so much for listening to me for the past 50 minutes. And then I'm going to open the floor for questions.
That was fantastic, Rhoda. I'm sure if everyone could give a round of applause, I'm sure that they would at the moment. If you do have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the Q&A. We do have a few moments. So ask away. You've got Rhoda's undivided attention at the moment. And it's okay if you're shy to do so as well. We can always take those via email and do a one-on-one response as well. But I actually have a side question while people are potentially thinking about what to put in for the Q&A, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, but who would you recommend kind of oversee the agents, tweaks after the post go live? Like, what would your suggestion be for that?
I would say that it depends on the maturity of the team with AI. If your team is not really comfortable yet with making changes, it's best to get your implementation partners stay on for post go live support in the initial days. But even with us, we train a lot of our customers' IT teams to be able to make changes, minimum changes. One of the things that Agentforce does for you as well is that you have something called Agentforce versions, which means that the version of your Agentforce that's live can be version 1, and you can create and clone the version and make changes to that version. So if for any reason you do something that doesn't work, then you just revert to the previous version and then get people to support you. So you can also do those changes in the sandboxes, test it to see how it works, and then before you move them over to production. So it's also something important that you can do as well.
Love that
Yeah,
insight. Definitely good to play in the sandbox before you push to production.
for sure.
Awesome. Well, I don't see any questions pop in, but again, if you do have anything at all, I see a couple thank yous, which is wonderful. If you do have anything at all, there will be an email shortly after where you can watch the recording and share that with other folks in your organization. And you'll get an email from myself personally to share the checklist as well as some of our links to solutions. And if you have any questions, you can always reply to those. But we'll give you 7 minutes back in your day. Again, Rhoda, thank you so much for such a wonderful educational webinar, and we hope to see you all at our next one.
Wonderful. Have a lovely day, team.